Hello, welcome to Monday, April 6th, 2020. It is day 11 of our digital learning. So before spring break, we had done our geometry unit with working with cubes and 2D shapes and 3D shapes and working with right angles. So our I can statement for today is I can compose a rectangle by putting together real-life square objects to determine the total number of rows, columns, and squares. So let's look at our key vocabulary that we need to know for today. We are going to be talking about rows and columns. So a row is objects arranged from left to right. So if I were to do that, I'm going to use this. So a row is arranged from left to right. So row, 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 and row. So we have 4 rows. And a column is from up and down. Oops. Use the blue. Is up and down, so this would be a column. This is a column. This is another column. And this is my last column. So I have 4 columns. In total. So looking at our I do, it says Mrs. Hannafin is sewing a pillow. The pillow she's making needs a fabric with 15 squares. How many rows and columns will she have? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to circle my numbers, which is 15. So I need to draw something with 15 squares. And then my question is, how many rows and columns will she have? So how many rows will she have? And how many columns will she have? So remember, a row is left to right, and a column is from top to bottom. So normally we would be using our manipulatives for this and using our tiles as shown right here in our bottom left corner. But because we are doing this via digital learning days, I'm going to be using my square manipulative tiles right here. So one of the ways I'm going to organize it is, because there's 15, I'm going to do a 10 frame to help me organize my process. So I'm going to use my red tiles to help me. And now I have 5. So I'm starting with my green to make another row. Oops. So this looks like a 10 frame. I have 10 so far. And I'm adding another 5 to make 15. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to write in black my rows. This is row 1, row 2, and row 3. So I have 3 rows. And now I'm going to write in orange my columns. And remember, my columns are up and down. So I have column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, and column 5. So I have 5 columns. Oops. So to write it in sentence form, I'm going to write this in pink. Miss Hanifin will have 3 rows and 5 columns. So when doing an arrays, it is very important that we do the rows first in the column. So a good way to remember doing that would be thinking of the brand RC Cola. So rows first, then columns. So because it's so important, I wanted to show you, for an example, to show a 3x2 array. So a 3x2 array would be 3 rows and 2 columns. So on the left, you would see a 3x2. 3 rows, row 1, I'm going to do R1, R2, and R3. Oops. R3, and column 1 and column 2. So 3 rows and 2 columns. That looks very different than the one on the right, where it'd be 2 rows, R1 and R2, and column 1, column 2, and column 3. So when we hear 3x2, we would think of this one on the left, not the one on the right. So normally now it's time for the you do. But because we are doing digital learning, I want you to turn and talk to your mother or your father or your older brother or older sister or younger brother or younger sister. Maybe you can teach them something and do the sentence and to do the we do together. So the we do says, the piece of fabric Miss Hanifin is using to make a pillow is shown. It has a pattern of the same size squares. How many rows and columns does Miss Hanifin have? So I want you to turn and talk to your partner, and I want you to use the sentence stem. There are blank squares in the piece of fabric. I know this because I can see blank rows and blank columns, and also because blank. So I'm going to give you some time now to turn and talk to your partner. Okay, so now that you've had some time to turn and talk to your partner, or hopefully you've paused the video and then you've turned and talked to your partner, I want to give you what Miss Elliott said, what I said. So I said that there are 12 squares in the piece of fabric. I know this because I can see 4 rows and 3 columns. And also because I know that I have 4 groups of 3, and 3 plus 3 equals 6, and then 6 plus 6 equals 12. So I used my doubles and I used my mental math to check my answer. So you have 2 activities to do. This is the you do. You must do this activity. So this family collage is composed of the same size square photos. How many photos have been covered? So you would type in your sentence stem for task 1. You would say, blank number of pictures have been covered. I know this because I can see blank number of rows and blank number of columns. So the total of photos should be blank. So the number of photos that are missing is because blank. Your second activity, task 2, you must do this activity. You will create a rectangle using squares such as Cheez-Its, Post-it notes. You could even use toilet paper squares, Chex Mix, whatever you can find that has some squares. You will create your own array, and you will take a picture and use the sentence stems to explain how many rows and columns you have. Or you can create a video note and show how many rows and columns you have. So your sentence stem would be, I composed a rectangle using blank. My rectangle has blank number of rows and blank number of columns. I have blank number of objects in my array. So my example that Miss Elliott did, the example that you do not copy. I composed a rectangle using sticky notes. My rectangle has 3 rows and 2 columns. I have 6 sticky notes. So my array would be a 3 by 2. 3 rows and 2 columns. I want you to do both tasks, upload your videos, upload your pictures, and have a great day.